Welcome to the Peter King Podcast. It's the week before the draft, Peter King Podcast. Happy to be joined this week by Paul Burmeister, my friend at NBC Sports, who's going to give us a good window into the new world of the USFL. He's one of NBC's announcers on the USFL telecasts. So we'll get into that a little bit later. We're going to get into a lot of the draft, obviously, this week. My guest later on in the show today will be Peter Schrager of Fox Sports and Good Morning Football, who's just come out with his second mock draft. We'll discuss that later in the show. Today, we're going to talk about the mystery of Jacksonville at number one. We're going to talk about a lot of the mysteries in this draft. Carolina being the first team in the draft, most likely, that could go quarterback at number 6. If they don't go quarterback at number 6, quarterbacks might fall a little bit in this draft. We're going to discuss how the COVID year in college football in 2020 actually made the 2022 draft a lot better, and I'll explain why. And, this was just a little nugget I put in my column this week in Football Morning in America that got a lot of response and reaction, and that is that if salary trends continue, and I see no reason why they won't, because the cap is going to be going up a lot more than it has been in the past few years. If salary trends continue, we are not far away from a $100 million a year player in the National Football League. And I think all of us just said, oh my God, what is this world coming to? But it's coming to this. Anyway, Paul, how are you? You're back from Birmingham, and we're going to discuss the USFL, but I take it you had a good time down there and are enjoying your early moments of the USFL.
It's been all kinds of fun, Peter. And obviously this was the first weekend of games, but I've been down there now 3 weeks in a row, really enjoying the access and the friendliness of all the coaches and players and how willing they are to work with us and kind of to help make it a good broadcast all spring and summer. So I'm excited you want to leave some time for USFL at the end, because I'm ready to go on all fronts there.
Yeah, really, there's so much to talk about. I'm going to ask you 3 questions about it, but I think the one takeaway I have about any new football league is don't give me any judgment right now about whether it's going to make it or whether it's not going to make it. Or, well, Fox and NBC, they got deep pockets, so it's going to make it. I mean, I remember hearing that with the XFL 2 decades ago and didn't exactly ring true after 4 months. But I do want to talk a little bit about the nitty-gritty of it, so we'll get into that later. But, Paul, let's start. My column this week, one of the things I did was I talked to 12 people around the league, GMs, personnel people. I got a coach who's intimately involved in the process, shall we say. And the one thing that I got tremendous disparity of views is what Jacksonville is going to do at number 1. But I'm getting a sense for a lot of people in the league, especially because they're trying to read the tea leaves with Trent Baalke, the general manager, who probably is more of an athlete type picker of players than he is a meat and potatoes guy. And that's why a lot of people think they might pick Trayvon Walker from Georgia, even though he does not have the results and sort of the game performance pedigree that a guy like Aiden Hutchinson would have. But Paul, I think this is going to be a case at the top of the draft where the Jaguars could go for more of a sure thing if they take Aiden Hutchinson or even one of the tackles, or go with the potential pot of gold in Trayvon Walker. How do you see it?
Well, it's funny, Peter, how, every year the names change, the details change, but how many times have we come down to this point of the draft, and no matter what position we're talking about, Does the production in college, does it match the potential we're seeing with this really talented player? And right now it's Jacksonville, and it seems to be which defensive lineman do they want the most? And I'm torn here, Peter, because on one hand, I firmly believe that results matter. You have to look at what these guys did, no matter what position they played in college, and you have to include that in a very significant way with your evaluation, whether you want them or not. But the more I'm around it, the more I also really think context matters too. And Trayvon Walker wasn't just your DN where the quarterback said, we are setting up a defense for you to go get the quarterback, go and have fun doing it. They didn't do that with him. He moved all around. He even dropped back off the line of scrimmage quite a bit. They have a crazy amount of talent around him. So this is a case where I think context may matter than results. And also, I will point this out too about defensive ends, Peter. Sack is the most misleading stat there is, because you can get a sack and just kind of fall into it. You can ruin an offense's passing game all Saturday and all Sunday and not really have the numbers to show it. So I'm kind of leaning toward go with Walker because of the context. But I do have this part of me that screams the results should matter a lot too.
I'm going to read you one general manager. I identified these GMs just by numbers. So this was my GM 3. He said, Walker's a one-year starter who had 6.5 sacks with a lot of talent around him on a great Georgia defense. He said, again, I like him, but I prefer to base the grade on how he actually played football. And here's the other thing. I had a couple of people mention this to me, that they're very skeptical of fast risers right now. And so, and Trayvon Walker is your classic fast riser. So one of the general managers, not the one I just quoted. Well, no, actually, it was the one I just quoted. I'm sorry. He said in December he wasn't really on the radar too much. So I went back and looked at 4 mock drafts at the end of the regular season. So here's what happened really with the mock drafts that I saw in December. One of them had Walker 25th, one 32nd, one of them 45th. This is a multi-round mock draft. And one of them did not have him in the first round. So, and now you're seeing everybody's got him in the top 10. So it's not like he played a lot more games after those. And he played whatever, 1 or 2 more games. But, I'm a little skeptical of guys who blow up in, February and March. That's all. So we'll see what happens. But Paul, I think the one really interesting thing, the last few years, we've known right now who the first pick in the draft is going to be. We knew it was Trevor Lawrence last year. We knew it was Joe Burrow the year before. So usually it's been a quarterback. So we've known, I think going back almost to 2017 when we suspected it'd be Baker Mayfield, but we weren't positive. And that's why this year is sort of fun, because we really don't know. We may know before next Thursday. We'll see. But let's talk about one other mysterious part of this draft. I had a general manager tell me, he goes, look, if I took the 20 smartest guys who do this for a living, and meaning people in our business who have pretty good sense of what's going on. He goes, I would bet that that the smartest thing that you could say about that is that everyone would be different, the order of their top 10. And so, and again, look, I think those of us who pride ourselves in knowing some things and being smart about things like mock drafts, I fully expect to be totally embarrassed on the mock draft, as do most, I think as most people will be. And the reason is that I just think that there's still so much mystery about who certain teams are going to take, and still so much discussion at the top of the draft. So, we'll see what happens. But this is a time where I think mystery is probably good. It'll make for a better TV show on the first night of the draft.
100%. And I will probably roll this out there next weekend when you and I do the mock draft. But mock draft is not so much about how many you get right, but it's about your logic and your understanding of the teams and the players, and if it's a fun listen. So I know we'll talk more about that next week. But as far as that intrigue in the top 10, Peter, no quarterback, throws a loop in there, or no quarterback that most people feel is worthy of a top 10 pick. We'll see if one or two actually make it in there. And debating which lineman deserves to go 1, 2, 3, or 4. I mean, that's a little different too. One other thing, as I think about the mystery in this top 10 and the intrigue and the fact that we're all going to have a different top 10, two names to consider: a wide receiver, Drake London, and safety out of Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton. Probably more likely that they won't go in the top 10, I guess. But keep in mind the rare physical talents that they are and the incredible unique potential they have at those two positions. I wouldn't be surprised at all if both of them show up in the top 10, certainly one of them. But that just adds to me not only an extra layer of mystery, but real interest, because there are always talented guys at these positions in the draft. These are different looking types of talented potential
Drake
stars
London
in the
especially.
League. Absolutely, they are. And
but Kyle Hamilton, Kyle Hamilton is so interesting, and you hear this from teams. Like when I just go down the list of the 30 guys, and I just, a couple of times so far this spring, I've just gone down. I said, give me 2 sentences on each guy. What is interesting about Kyle Hamilton is that the common thing that I hear is definitely worth a top 10 pick, doesn't play a position that is often worthy of a top 10 pick. So you have to really love your safety playing all over the map like Kyle Hamilton could do in the NFL. So we'll see about him. Paul, I want to get into the 6th pick in the draft, Carolina. What's so interesting about the Panthers is that, and again, look, I don't mean to malign Kenny Pickett. I don't mean to malign any quarterback. But the fact is, in my column this week, I had a list of all the quarterbacks who were picked in the top 6 of the last 10 drafts. Okay, there's 18 of them. Right now, I think for sure you would pick Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, and maybe Kyler Murray as guys who you think absolutely make it guys, long-term, really good players. How many more out of all those? Let me just read them to you. Andrew Luck, Robert Griffin III, Blake Bortles, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz, Mitchell Trubisky, Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Daniel Jones, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, just the road is littered with guys who, for whatever reason, haven't made it yet, and it looks like won't make it. So I guess my only point about this is, man, reaching for one this year, which to me would be picking a quarterback at number 6, just has risk written all over it.
I can't think of another team recently, Peter, that was more stuck in a number of ways also. I mean, they don't have that many options. So you look at what they're doing at 6 and how they made a play for veteran quarterbacks in the offseason, how well represented they were from the personnel department to the coaching staffs at all of these major pro days. Clearly, it's priority number 1, as it should be, but look at their options. So you can reach for a quarterback at 6. And maybe they have talked themselves into one of these guys. I mean, that often happens. That's one option. What's your other option? You go to camp with Sam Darnold. You try to make it happen for Baker Mayfield. Maybe you try to get Jimmy Garoppolo. That's it. Keep in mind, they don't have a pick outside of 6 in the top 100. They don't have a late first. They don't have a second or a third to hope somebody falls down there. It's 6, it's Baker, or it's Sam. I mean, that they don't have options. To me, I would think that they're this team that we throw this blanket statement around. They're open for business. They'd rather trade back. This is a team that has to be in that category of rather trade back if somebody wants to get up they're not going to get value for it because teams have to know they're desperate, but they are as stuck at the quarterback spot as any team that I can remember recently.
We talked about this a little bit last week, but I thought it was a brilliant point by Chris Sims. Imagine you bring Kenny Pickett onto your team and go to training camp, and everybody in training camp, every single person can tell that, hey, Sam Darnold's better than Kenny Pickett. What'd you do? And so, and I'm not saying that'll happen, but it could happen.
It's a great point.
It's really kind of a dangerous thing. Paul, let's go into what makes this kind of a unique draft. Okay, a couple of people have mentioned to me, like, this is kind of the COVID draft. So in 2020, everybody's season was either shortened or altogether aborted. It just wasn't a normal college football season, obviously. I mean, Trey Lance played one game. So an awful lot of players chose to stay in. So I had one guy tell me, he goes, hey, listen, the Baltimore Ravens are sitting pretty in this draft because they're going to get the benefit of all of these guys who came back and played, because the middle class in this draft is almost twice as big as it normally would be, with all these guys who went back to play again in 2021. And then so many people are coming out this year. And his point was, God, the Ravens have 7 picks between 76 and 141. And he said, that is where you're going to get rich in this draft this year. And one other general manager said to me, what is going to be really competitive and really interesting is what happens on Saturday night after the 7th round. What happens when the recruiting process comes in and you start to try to get the undrafted college free agents? Paul, I believe you were one of those, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Out of Iowa, you got signed by the Minnesota Vikings. I want you to explain to our listeners what happens after the draft is over to the 500 people who thought I should be drafted, I wasn't, and now I want to go get a chance somewhere. What happens to all those players with NFL teams?
If you're one of the ones, Peter, that is really coveted by a lot of teams, like it actually starts happening well before the end of that 7th round. 6th, 7th round, teams start calling, your agent starts calling and say, hey, they're not going to take you, but if nobody else does, they want to be first in line to get you, because they can anticipate which one of these players, and because of the numbers that you mentioned, there are going to be hundreds of them that teams really, really want. So the phone starts ringing well before that draft is over, and the ones who are in the best spot can line up 3 or 4 and pick the one that they think is the best. And now the money comes into play too. I mean, not like a draft pick, but I mean, there are going to be some nice little salaries, some good incentive bonuses for these players to sign, where it used to be just, hey, we want you, and here's $2,500, or here's $3 or $4 grand.
What was your bonus out of Iowa when you got signed by the Vikings? Anything?
$1,500, Peter.
Wow.
And I thought I was rich, man.
What did you do with the money?
You know what? I wish I had a story. I remember how I felt when I had the $1,500, and that was great. But I don't remember what I did with that money. Probably went to the grocery store or something not very exciting like that. I'm going to tell you one other thing, though. One other technical about that. My first trip to the USFL training camp 2 or 3 weeks ago, I saw an NFL scout down there watching practice. I'm like, what do you think? He's like, here's what I think. COVID affected the draft so much. There are going to be so many really good undrafted free agents that this pool of good players here, guys who have done really well and end up signing, it's going to be a little more difficult for them because teams are going to have invested money in these undrafted free agents they want. They're going to feel really excited about them because there's more really good ones. So there are a number of ways what you just brought up are being felt around the evaluation world.
That is really an interesting point. Very, very good. Paul, I don't know if you noticed, but in my column this week, I had a note about the highest average salary in the NFL in 2012, 2017, and 2022. So in 2012, it was Drew Brees at $20 million on average in his contract. 2017, it was Matthew Stafford at $25.3 million. And this year was Aaron Rodgers at $50.3 million. So the numbers have gone up from 2012 to 22. The highest average salary has gone up 153%. From 17 to 22, it's basically gone up 100%. It's doubled. So I'm left to say with the salary cap, sure, to go up a lot higher and a lot more than it had in the last 5 years, without any question, we have a chance 5, 6, 7 years from now to have the first $100 million player in the NFL and it per year. And it won't be long before there will be multiple $100 million a year. I mean, I started to think, who could they be? I mean, 7 years from now, Arch Manning could be making $100 million for the pick a team, the Atlanta Falcons or whatever. It's sort of a crazy deal, but does it, I take it, when I first thought about that, it surprised me, but at the end of the day, if franchises are just blowing up the way they are and owners are making all the money, there's no reason why quarterbacks, the most valuable position in sports, shouldn't be making the money either.
It's a number that's staggering, Peter, just the same way to hear that a quarterback is making 40 or 50 million right now compared to what they were a few years ago. But it does make total sense. I mean, the hundreds of millions and billions that this package costs the networks, I mean, that has rocketed up. The amount of money teams make at the gates, measure away that they're making money. It's all going way up. So if you think about it, 100 million stops you in your tracks. But percentage-wise, it isn't that giant of a jump for the players making the most right now as compared to other ways you would really measure the financial success and how it's going through the roof in the NFL.
The weird thing is I just keep thinking that 3 or 4 years from now, when 12 quarterbacks have passed Patrick Mahomes, maybe 14, Kansas City loved that 12-year deal when they started it, adding 10 years onto an existing 2-year deal. They love that when they did it, but they're almost going to be forced to redo that contract because you can't have Patrick Mahomes playing as the 17th leading, money guy in football. Paul, I wanted, in the time we have left, I wanted to give you the floor about the USFL. And I watched Saturday night, Birmingham and New Jersey. And, what really struck me in a football sense is there's some really good receivers in this league. This Osiris Mitchell, the one-handed catch he made, the second touchdown in USFL history, that is a big league play. And so I just sort of look at it and think this, in a football sense, especially as you say, they might even be getting more good players after the NFL draft. You don't know. So just, I'll open the floor to you and ask you what you thought.
First of all, Peter, my thoughts go to the prep for getting ready for this first weekend. And it's been so much fun for me and for everybody who's been lucky enough to get this assignment to be around it, to start to get to know the players. And hey, we all love football and we're all excited to have it on the weekend of the spring, weekends where we normally wouldn't. But I think we also, when we get a chance, it's pretty easy to fall for a player's story who's on the fringe. I mean, think about Kurt Warner. There are so many players like this in the NFL every single season. This league is chock full of guys who were this close to making it or did make it for 2 or 3 years and desperately want a way back. And it's easy to fall for these stories and pull for these guys. In addition to just being excited to have football on, one of those stories, and this is just one of many, there's a quarterback in the league named Kyle Sloter, who in the last month I've gotten to know fairly well, getting ready for the first game. Okay, so you start with the fact, in the last 5 years, Peter, whether it's active roster or practice roster, he's been with 6 teams the last 5 years. And the way he can articulate, what he learned from Matthew Stafford in his 2 months in Detroit, or what he learned from Kirk Cousins in 2 years in Minnesota, it's wonderful. And then you get further along in his story. Teams can fly in players to work them out, even when they don't have to sign them. They can fly them in, keep them for a day or two, see if they want to sign them. when you go with the practice squad, training camp, active roster, flying for workouts, Cal's been in 26 buildings in the NFL.
Wow.
26 out of 32.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that just crazy? And he just wants to play. He wants to take the little things he learned from Matthew Stafford and Kyler Murray and Derek Carr, little steps along the way. And he's like, I've been saying for 5 years, I can't believe they signed that guy instead of me. I can't believe they cut me for that guy. He's like,
yeah,
now I've got to go show it. I mean, now I realize I've done all this talking. I've got to go see what these 10 starts, if I'm worthy of getting back and actually playing. So I think they're just really cool stories for people who love football to kind of fall for and have some guys to really cheer for.
Paul, the one thing from a bit of a technical sense, I really want to see these teams go for 3 after a touchdown.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I don't want to see the PATs. See if you can put in a word for that. The other thing, and I wrote a little note in my column, and this has been circulating. I saw it in a couple of columns after the first weekend. It seems like the quarterbacks and the kickers are not really happy with the fact that they've put the sensor in the ball, and it actually has affected sort of the weight of the football and how the football actually works now, where it's harder to throw that perfect spiral. Can you explain what has happened when they put the sensor in the football and why they did it?
Yeah, so there's a sensor in the football in one of the tips. This is the way I understand it. In one of the noses of the football, if you can picture it, they put this chip in there. So the whole idea is to have fun with and kind of push the technology with the broadcast. So that chip is in there. So you don't have to bring out the chains and do a measurement with a first down. There are 8 cameras all around the field, and they want to be able to simultaneously take a shot of the ball. And the hope is to within a millimeter, they know exactly where the ball is for these measurements. But my understanding in reading what you read and kind of listening around the league when I'm down there, the ball coming off the quarterback's hand and coming off the kicker's toe doesn't always sail the way they want it to.
Yeah.
And I saw enough passes over the weekend where I was like, okay. I mean, maybe the ball just got away from him. It happens, but I've heard enough, read enough, and kind of saw enough with my nerdy old quarterback eyes to see the ball coming out where it's like, I think it's worth keeping an eye on. And the bottom line, Peter, no team scored over 30 points. Over half the team scored less than 20. And I know the defenses are ahead of the offenses early in any league or in any camp, but it's worth keeping an eye on for a number of reasons.
Really interesting stuff. Paul, we'll talk about this more as the year goes on, the USFL season. I'm really interested in it. I like the new leagues. I like the land of opportunity kind of stuff that there is. And, I wish them well, and we'll see what happens. So I'm going to get into my guest now, Peter Schrager from Fox Sports and Good Morning Football. You'll hear in my chat with him what he feels good about and what he doesn't feel good about in his mock draft that he just released as we record this on Tuesday. So we'll get into that. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of the draft. Paul and I will be back next Monday morning, and we will be next Monday morning getting into my mock draft so that you'll be able to throw a lot of rotten vegetables at me, because it's not going to be a great year with the mock draft. But anyway, let's get into Peter Schrager first. Here he is from Good Morning Football at Fox Sports, Peter Schrager. My thanks to Paul Burmeister and Peter Schrager for their knowledge, for their input this week on the Peter King podcast. Look forward to next week when, as I said before, we will get into pick by pick, the 32 picks of the first round as forecast by me. Have a great week, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next week. And then the long nightmare of draft prep will all be over. The NFL draft 1 week from now.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.